45,000 foot range means it's going to be a specialty type grocery store. You know, I don't see that being an issue, but we'd like to see what the conditions are, not just blankly support it. And I really think that's about it. It's still a work in progress. I think there was some very good recommendations by some of the community members, and we'll move on. We'll move on from there. But in regards to two major issues, density and height, have I been clear? Do you understand? Because I just want to make sure that it is indeed clear, and the height needs to be in keeping with the specific plan. It could deviate, again, like I said, a couple feet based on elevation, undulating elevation of the site, and architectural improvements. And then the density needs to be more in keeping with the recommendations from the Homeowners Association, which I think is a fair balance.
All right, thank you very much. Now we are going to hear the response. Let me remind you that this is a concurrent hearing. We are not engaging in discussing the entitlements themselves, because that's a business for the City Planning Commission. We can hear the response as it relates to the tract. And I don't know, how long do you think you need to respond to some of the questions, the issues? We're not engaging in the entitlement, you know, the commission entitlements, just the tract at this point.
You cannot talk about the excessive, we are asking for variances and specific time, those are all commission issues.
Yeah.
Anything specific before the subdivision, you can have a
yeah.
If you have any.
Is there an opportunity to respond to the comments?
Yeah, you are gonna, how long do you need to respond? So we can, 5-10 minutes, that's fair. Well, whatever the testimonies where they are going to respond to that. Yeah. Now let me ask you another question. The transcripts, are you publishing the transcripts? The transcripts for the hearing, for this hearing?
The transcript will be kept and part of the administrative record at the end of the process.
Okay. All right. No, let's hear the answers.
We are also videotaping the whole thing.
All right. Well, that's a community issue. I mean, you're taking the initiative. That's very good. So we're going to hear the answers, the answer from the applicant to some of the comments. The council office is right in the sense that, you know, for the advisory agency to make a decision, we need to make findings for that. The decision, however, is going to be contingent to the approval of the City Planning Commission, which is the parent case. Ultimately, the City Planning Commission will have the last word as to, you know, the way to proceed. But the advisory agency has the responsibility to come up with a decision with a recommendation. And the project has been challenged in many areas, the EIR, traffic, density, all the specific planning sections. So if you can go on, you know, be straight to the point and respond to those issues, you know, we will probably be out sooner. Thank you.
Also, just want to make sure, Hendricks, just want to make sure that the findings that we're discussing in terms of the subdivision are subdivision findings, not the findings that are related to the entitlements. Just want to make sure that's clear.
All right. Thank you very much. And after the presentation, I'm going to close the public hearing. There is not going to be talking from the public. You know, we probably engage in a few comments with Georgia Cabanettian, let me introduce you. We will hear from the applicant the responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name and your state your name so we know who.
David Goldberg, Long Brewster, Goldsmith, and Delvac on behalf of the applicant. I want to thank everyone who showed up today, whether they're in support or in opposition to the project. We know it's hard to get away from work, and so we appreciate all of the input as well as from the council office. Thank you, Jonathan, for your feedback today. I'd like to just touch on a handful of items that were raised during public comment. You know, clearly traffic is an issue. We all know it. We heard it today. I think the traffic concerns we've heard about folks living in the community really relate to any redevelopment of this site as opposed to it remaining vacant. I think anything that you put there, people will see a difference. It's important to be mindful the site is designated regional commercial. And so the community plan envisions higher intensity uses for that site and that those are compatible uses. This is a highly urbanized part of the valley along Sepulveda. I live in the valley, I grew up in the valley, and I've been there almost my entire life. And this is a commercial corridor. It's a major class 2 highway, and while there are single family homes further on to the east, there's a multifamily residential zone area in between them. And so we understand that folks do take access off of Sepulveda and that they will be impacted. And we've heard a lot about FAR, but it's important to understand that FAR, while it's one metric, is not the only metric. It doesn't resolve the traffic issue that you've heard today by designing to a 1.5 to 1 FAR. The EIR looked at a commercial alternative that would double the traffic of this project at that FAR. The EIR did study a reasonable range of alternatives. We did not look at a mixed-use project with the 1.5 to 1 FAR because that would not reduce the significant impacts from traffic. They would be, the same intersections would be impacted at that ratio, and EIR is supposed to look at alternatives that can reduce impacts. And so it's important to keep that in mind as well. And so what we want to look at, and we hope others will as well, is look at this site as the opportunity that it does present to think beyond, consistent with what we're seeing now with the mayor's transit corridors cabinet and TOD developments. Now we've heard the council office make commentary because we know in Hollywood fixed rail serves as the basis for TOD over there, but that's not the only way. And transit strategies look beyond fixed rail. They look at bus and they look at light rail, and they look at areas that are within a quarter mile of rapid transit the way we have here. And so we believe this is very much consistent with that vision. We've heard about the specific plan and the nature of the exceptions that we're seeking here and the intent of this specific plan. And the fundamental purpose of that specific plan is to assure an equilibrium between transportation infrastructure and land use development. Now, when the specific plan was drafted, that might have meant one thing. But today, when you look at that and you think about the way, and we heard Ms. Casavan so eloquently explain, the strategies of the past are no longer working. Spreading out housing throughout the Sherman Oaks area to meet the demand under the housing element for Sherman Oaks, it's about 4,000 dwelling units that are contemplated between 2007 and 2014. Pushing those to other areas and spreading them out is not the solution. The solution is looking at areas where they can be accommodated with an opportunity to reduce vehicle miles traveled and give folks a real opportunity for transit. People are skeptical, we understand that. The Valley has not been known as a transit hub, but that is changing. And the East San Fernando Valley Corridor transit project that's being studied within the EIR is going to be another step towards that. We heard about the street vacation. The track map does include a request for a merger and re-subdivision to vacate Lameda and Peach Street. I think you saw on those slides that we showed, those are not streets that are used today. They serve no public purpose for vehicular circulation. There's no public parks there. I think someone said that it's open space. That's not the purpose of a street. Those are street easements, and we believe that the findings are supported for the merger and re-subdivision. We heard comments about noise. Mr. Long made comments very similar to those that were made on the EIR. The final EIR provides response to comments to those. We don't believe any new issues were raised with those comments. There were comments about circulation between Sepulveda and Camarillo. DOT did look at that intersection. They looked at the mitigation and the striping plan proposed. They approved of that mitigation measure, and we believe the EIR adequately addresses those issues as well. Before I pass it over to my partner, RJ Comer, I just do want to acknowledge that on late Friday afternoon, we did receive a copy. We didn't receive it, we obtained it from the case file of Mr. Torrigan's letter. It's unfortunate it was only now submitted. This project's been going on for a while. The draft EIR was available for public review over 2 years ago. There's certainly been ample opportunity to comment. We actually noted that some of the comments Mr. Torrigan transmitted were actually dated May of 2011, right after the draft EIR circulation period was completed. So we're at a bit at a loss why they're only now being submitted. So it's a little hard at the 11th hour for a city to take in that kind of information. In the brief time that we have had to look at his letter, we don't believe it provides substantial evidence of any new significant impacts, and while Mr. Torrigan may disagree with the EIR's analysis and its conclusions, we believe that it's been prepared in compliance with CEQA. Nevertheless, we plan to take the opportunity between now and March 8th to submit responses into the record. With that, I will pass it over to my partner, RJ Comer, who will handle a few other rebuttal comments. Thank you.
Can I ask a question from this gentleman before you leave room? With respect to the draft map and the street, do they agree to the property?
You can address that in the commission. They have their time at this point. There will be opportunities for the public to challenge.
I'm asking after the hearing. You can ask him after the hearing. He's there.
Well, I want to ask you the question, not the applicant. If the land that is vacated, who does that accrue to? Is this a gift of public funds to the developer? Do they pay for it? Could I ask for the land?
There is a process for vacation of streets. It's an entitlement in itself, and there's a long process, so there is no short answer for that. Findings have to be made as well. So, and they are entitled to request that. It doesn't mean that it's going to be granted at this point or not.
Right.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is RJ Comer. I work for the law firm of Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delbeck, and I represent the applicant. I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time today. It's a long hearing, and I'll be very brief. I'm responding to two comments about parking and comments about traffic. With regard to parking, it is a true statement that this project exceeds the only parking requirement applicable to this project in the Los Angeles Municipal Code. The Los Angeles Municipal Code does not differentiate between condo parking and apartment parking. It just provides a parking requirement for multifamily housing. This project exceeds that requirement. It is also true that this city has an uncodified policy for parking when it is a condominium, and this project meets that requirement. It doesn't exceed it, but it meets it. But it's important to understand that that condo policy is not in the code. So when we say we exceed code required parking, that's a true statement. More importantly though, the reference to another project in Hollywood was misleading. In that sense, the project in Hollywood that was referenced did not meet the condo standard parking. It met the code required parking for apartments, but it did not meet the condo standard parking. So that project is not relevant to this case, which meets all of the parking requirements, whether they be codified or uncodified. With regard to the loss of street parking, generally an EIR tells a scary story. And the fact is, most of the time the developer is saying, do we have to say that? Do we have to say that? EIRs, the purpose of the EIR is to tell the worst possible story reasonable. And so this EIR does say the removal of parking may cause impacts. As a result of that possible impact, mitigation measure K15 has been imposed to create a special parking congestion zone to respond to those the potential loss of parking impacts. Folks may disagree whether that would work, but it is not a true statement that this EIR understates or backs away from the issue of potential impacts regarding the loss of street parking. With regards to traffic, one of the speakers quoted from the EIR as if the EIR is somehow dishonorable or misleading. The fact is, the EIR does not hide the fact that traffic is very bad in this neighborhood. It is. The EIR does not hide the fact that although we mitigate 11 intersections, we can't mitigate 5 others. The EIR does not hide the fact that we don't revise the traffic analysis based on the 399 unit project. It's more conservative to reference that traffic will be less in a 399 unit project, but it's more conservative to say, we're going to stick with the 500 unit project for purposes of analyzing impacts because the impacts of that project are worse. And then it's also true that, well, we don't take the credit for certain kinds of assumptions in the ambient growth, and it may be true, and the EIR says this. Conditions may improve with or without us, depending on how things are implemented in terms of policies and in terms of other projects. But we don't assume that that's going to happen. We assume that it's not going to happen, and then we give you and the public the results of that analysis. And sometimes the results of that analysis is to say traffic could be bad. But that's the purpose of an EIR, is to tell you that. It doesn't mean that it's not honorable for an EIR to say that traffic is all going to be mitigated when it's not. And then it's up to the decision makers to decide whether the public benefits of this project outweigh those impacts. We certainly know some folks in this room say they don't, and that is their entitled right to say that. And ultimately the decision maker, and in this case the Deputy Advisory Agency, will decide whether those significant impacts that do remain are outweighed by the public benefits, and we assert that they are. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Reese. I'm with the land use consulting firm of Craig Lawson and Company, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of points. One was raised by the council out a while ago about what is the purpose of the condominium map, the track map. And in many projects that I work on, including this one, an important part of this having a track map is for financing reasons and to get the money to build the project in case there's a back end when they need to sell. This applicant has been a long-term landowner with all of their projects. This is consistent with what they did with their other project in the Encino area, which is a mixed-use project that did have a condo map on it, but they have rented it out as apartments and plan to do that for the foreseeable future. We're duplicating that effort here. The different lots divide up different components of the project. It divides up the commercial areas. There's a lot for the grocery store and for the small retail areas. There's a lot for the parking and for the different parking uses, as well as for the units themselves. So what it does is just creates condominiums out of these different areas. So there would be the right to sell these in the future if that was a desire of the applicant. Again, not the focus for this applicant. Another thing I'd like to touch on was there were a few comments brought up about precedent and that this would be a bad precedent. I do not believe that is an accurate statement. I think that this site has so many unique circumstances that are not applicable to other sites in the area. That range from the size of its size, its single ownership, the built environment. We touched on the fact that there's transit adjacent, it's next to an employment node. There is already a density of buildings in the area that this project would be consistent with. We have to deal with a sound wall that other sites don't have. The lack of proximity to an R1 zoning, we think, is also very crucial. We've shown slides earlier about the buffering. And again, consistent with this built environment is the vision of a regional commercial area, which is designated. I think at that point, we're available to any other comments or questions you might have.
Thank you very much. No, at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing. So no more comments will be allowed.
Can you tell us what the 25th meeting is about?
Okay, well, we'll mention that after, when we have general comments. But I'm closing the public hearing. I just want to, because we have the building engineering here, I don't know if you want to have express some thoughts of the project itself. You said that there was a letter or a question about the streets and address in one of the comments or letters. No? Okay.
Could you explain to us the easement, not easement, but the trade over a city street?
I understand what your question. Yes. Yes, I understand your question. I understand your question.
Your name again?
My name is George Abanesian. Basically, my answers are basically technical answers. Our Bureau of Engineering has no position on approving or disapproving or even suggesting a project to be approved or not approved. We only look at the technical aspects of it. We only see if applicant meets the general plan, street designations and dedications and improvements, and also follows the State Map Act law when they file for subdivision. That's our position and our comments in our report to the Planning Department. And as you know, this advisory agency and Planning Commission are the entities that are going to approve, conditionally approve or disapprove this project. Now, with that said, the first question I'm going to answer is the council office asking what is the air rights. Basically, we have two type of subdivision. We have horizontal subdivisions, which properties are divided horizontally, and we have airspace subdivision, which subdivision is subdivided vertically. So the both are subdivisions as stated in the State Map Act law, and as the applicant's representative mentioned it, on the vertical, or in this case airspace subdivision, what allows them to do is to sell separately each airspace as a separate lot. And it's a big horizontal lot to sold to separate owners. All the airspaces separately are sold to different ownership. Each retail area has a separate lot number, and vertically sitting on top of each other could be sold separately to a person who will hold the title for that space only. Now the condominium space itself, it's one separate space which concludes all the 399 proposed condominium in that space. That itself, it's one lot. It's not 399 lots, if that's what you're trying to find out. Am I answering your question?
Yes, but there will be a track map for every individual unit as well.
No, that lot number 10, which will be enclosing all the condos in there, just like one lot condo we have for 10 units on regular, there only is one lot.
Okay, got it.
So it's going to be one lot, only a space lot somewhere, sitting on a space on top of some other space lot that will have all the condominium units in there. And then they'll have a separate airspace lot that they will build the condominium unit parking structure. And they will have a separate lot that will build the commercial parking structure. And then they will all have access within each other via what they call the private easement rights. Elevator shafts will be like driveways. They all have common easement rights in their titles. And staircases and common areas. So that's what the airspace subdivision is. Your question?
My question.
Strict vacations, what it is under State Map Act law, we have the authority to review and process what they call the merger of an existing public street or public easement into a track map. And how we look at it is this condition that we'll put in saying, right now it's okay to merge, but you have to follow these conditions. Those conditions in detail means this. When they come in for detailed track map processing, our map checkers and surveyors were asking to bring the title showing that street actually came from part of the subdivision that was before the street was created. So that street was created off of their own land before this new subdivision. If they have a right to that street, before that street was created was another subdivision that they had the right to be there, then they get the right to get the street back because they have what we call underlying fee rights. If they don't have the underlying fee rights, then we will find out who has it. If it's cross-street neighbor, they will get it. And they have to negotiate with them and pay them to get the rights.
So you just said in simple English is, the original owner going back X number of years owned that land, then a street came in, they still own the land, and the city obtained an easement to the center line, and now if the city abandons that street, that original fee simple ownership of that to the center line goes back to the original owner, which may or may not be the developer in this case.
Exactly.
Is that in simple English?
Exactly what you said. Yes, I agree with
I'm
you.
available for a reason.
There are no copyrights. It's a public hearing.
But we don't know who really owns the fee simple.
No, we have a condition here. After the main condition saying you can merge, then we add those comments that you have to prove the underlying fee rights. If they cannot prove it, they cannot have it.
If I can interrupt real quick, just to let you know, we own the fee rights to the property and the street there. So.
But again, we're not saying you do, we still have to check it later on.
I understand, you
Yeah.
continue to do your job, but
Yeah.
we have title information to that
Mhm.
ownership.
And then also, that area, they have to close, and we have to make sure that there are any existing sewer lines, storm drain lines, utilities, they have to relocate and provide the same services if it's continued with their own financing. That concludes my statement. If you have any other question from me, advisory agency.
All right, thank you very much. We have only one agency here, so as advisory agency, we're going to take all your comments, and we have a limit of March 8 or 18?
March 8th.
March 8. The decision letter may go out before, but March 8 is the point of reference, right? We don't want to release it later, so people have a chance to appeal, and the commission can hear your comments. All right. Thank you very much for attending.
If you wish to receive the letter of determination, you need to sign this pink sheet.
Yeah, I'm closing the hearing right now.